You are too expensive, leave, the founder's son shouted. My phone rang instantly. I put it on speaker. This is your biggest competitor. We heard you are available. We will double your salary. The son went pale. Then the voice added, and we are taking your clients too. That moment of spectacular corporate collapse was still months away, but I knew it was inevitable the second Braden Miller, Jr., walked into the company headquarters. I was the 45-year-old corporate strategist Jordan, and for 17 years, I had been the structural integrity of this software consultancy. I was the rainmaker. I was the person who turned bleeding accounts into Tier 1 vendors. I saw Braden enter, wearing a fleece vest that cost more than my first Honda Civic, smelling of aggressive sandalwood and entitlement. He walked like a toddler who had just been given a new, very expensive sandbox to destroy. My entire life was built on calculated victories. I grew up with the gnawing fear of financial instability, a shadow cast by a large corporation that once discarded my family during a callous merger. That memory shaped me. It taught me that value was measured in tangible success, in revenue, in signed contracts. My armor was my professionalism. I was the guy who flew coach to Omaha on a Tuesday night to convince a manufacturing giant that a $10 million digital transformation would save them $40 million. I built this place brick by calculated brick, sacrificing every birthday and anniversary for the sake of quarterly projections. My greatest fear was being seen as disposable, yet I had made myself indispensable. My indispensability became inconvenient when Old Man Miller, the founder, decided to retire. He looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and called me the engine of the company. But he handed the keys to Braden, calling his son the one who needs a playground. Just like that, 17 years of relentless work and sacrifice were outweighed by a trust fund and a father's misplaced affection. I was loyal to the firm, but my loyalty did not extend to stupidity. I moved from feeling betrayed by Miller to smoldering rage directed at the jester now sitting on the throne. The transition was not a handover. It was a hostile takeover by ignorance. Braden immediately began implementing changes based on his vibes. The first week, he reorganized the entire seating chart. He moved the introverted engineering team to sit directly next to the high-energy sales team, calling it cross-pollination. In reality, it was just corporate speak for forcing the brilliant people who actually built the product to have panic attacks, while the sales guys rang gongs. I watched the infection spread from my corner office, a sanctuary that would not remain safe for long. Braden cared about optics, not output. He installed an espresso machine that required an application to operate, and then hired a chief vibe officer named Kyle, who wore beanies indoors and spoke exclusively in motivational platitudes gleaned from social media. The company's foundation, the very structure I had painstakingly built, was being eroded by superficiality. I watched, silently fuming, as his incompetence became institutionalized. My discipline, my greatest asset, had now become a liability in a culture that valued performance over precision. I was the engine, and the driver was taking the bus toward a cliff. My smoldering rage hardened into a strategic, internal withdrawal. I knew I had to wait. I just needed to survive long enough to witness the first critical mistake. The infection that Braden brought was a brazen display of arrogant ignorance. My primary function, strategy, was now deemed secondary to his vision. Our first official one-on-one meeting was held in my corner office, which still smelled faintly of the 17 years I had worked there, not the expensive synthetic scent Braden preferred. He sat back in my chair, looking like he was posing for a business magazine cover that would never actually exist. "Jordan," he began, "you are incredible, truly a legacy asset. But we need to pivot. We need to be more agile, more disruptive." I let the words hang in the air, tasting like expired milk. Disruptive. I repeated, my voice flat. "Braden, we manage enterprise software implementation for Fortune 500 logistics companies. They do not want disruption. They want their trucks to show up on time. If we disrupt them, the economy stops." He blinked. It was the blank, cow-eyed look of a man who had never had to pay a heating bill in his life. Right. But think about the narrative, Jordan. You are very operational. I need you to be more visionary. Visionary. It was his polite way of saying he wanted a cheerleader, not a strategist. He did not want my expertise. He wanted my applause as he drove the bus off the cliff. The first critical mistake came swiftly, tied to the quarterly review prep. For the first time in 17 years, I was not leading the prep. I was merely consulted. Our biggest revenue generator was the Omnicorp account, a sprawling, complex operation that needed constant maintenance. I had specifically warned Braden 3 weeks prior that we were dangerously close to missing their crucial renewal deadline. At a team meeting, I brought it up. "Braden," I said, my voice cutting across the stale air of the conference room, "Q3 numbers are down 20% because we missed the Omnicorp renewal." Braden waved a dismissive hand. "Omnicorp is old energy, Jordan. They are stuck in 2015. We are chasing unicorns now. Tiffany, tell them about the TikTok strategy." I watched in silent horror as Tiffany, his new strategic liaison, a 24-year-old who communicated entirely in corporate memes, presented her deck. It was 90% emojis. She proposed we market our $5 million a year enterprise-grade supply chain software by doing social media dance challenges. "Imagine," she said, eyes wide, "the chief financial officer of logistics doing the gritty. It is viral gold." The engineers stared at their shoes. The sales vice president stared at the ceiling, silently praying for a meteor strike. I looked at Braden. I realized he was not just stupid, he was dangerously arrogant. His confidence was a vacuum, sucking the oxygen out of the room. The only thing I could do now was stop fighting to save the company and start planning my escape. I went home that night and poured a glass of single malt scotch. My husband, a rock of stability, watched me from the doorway. "You look like you are planning a murder," he observed gently. "Not a murder," I said, taking a sip that tasted like iron and rage. "A controlled demolition." The disrespect had not yet peaked, but the foundation was laid. I was already mentally packing my boxes. I saw the end coming, and it was written in the corporate equivalent of Comic Sans font. I would leave this company, but I was not going to simply walk out. I was going to make sure that the one who discarded me paid the ultimate price. The phase of documentation and waiting had officially begun. The rot set in fast. Braden, incapable of understanding the product, began cutting the support structures that actually kept the business running. First, it was the quality assurance team. "Why do we need testers?" he asked the chief financial officer. "Shouldn't the code just work?" Then he eliminated the client success team. "If they like the product, they will stay. We do not need to hold their hands." These were the teams responsible for our 98% renewal rate. He was cutting the legs off the table and calling it efficiency. I knew I had to intervene one last time before I started my final maneuver. I booked a 15-minute slot on his calendar, a space carved out of what was listed as 3 hours of executive meditation, and walked into his office. "Braden, you are cutting the legs off the table," I said, keeping my voice level, clinging to my professionalism like a drowning man to driftwood. "Client success is not hand-holding, it is retention. It is the reason we have a renewal rate that our competitors weep over." He sighed dramatically, spinning a small plastic fidget spinner on his glass desk. A fidget spinner in 2024. "Jordan, you are bringing a lot of negative energy into the space. I need radiators, not drains." He leaned forward slightly, adopting the condescending grin of a burdened genius. "You are sounding very boomer right now." "I am 45. I snapped, my calm finally cracking. "I am sounding like a strategist who wants to make payroll next quarter." "See, that is what I mean," he said, the smugness intensifying. "Fear-based thinking. Maybe you should take a half day. Go get a facial, you look tired." That was the moment the switch flipped. The casual gendered, ageist dismissal was the ultimate humiliation, the breaking point that transformed my simmering resentment into deep Arctic cold. He thought I was old, tired, and disposable furniture he could put out on the curb. He forgot that I was the one who had bought and maintained the entire house. I walked back to my office, closed the door, and locked it. I did not scream or flip the desk. That would have been messy, and I do not do drama. I opened my private hard drive and created a new encrypted folder. I named it the Titanic. I was no longer an employee trying to save the ship. I was the black box recorder waiting for the inevitable crash. I began the meticulous process of documentation. Every insane email from Braden, every missed deadline he allowed, every client complaint that Tiffany had ignored because she was too busy filming a day in the life vlog, it all went into the Titanic. I downloaded my client's slide decks, the ones I had personally written every word of. I backed up my contact lists. I made PDF copies of every quarterly win, every metric, and every glowing thank you email from a chief executive officer. I was building a fortress of proof that the business was me, not the company name. The office atmosphere shifted subtly. The veterans, the people who actually knew how the software sausage was made, started avoiding eye contact with me. They could smell the ozone. They knew I was on the chopping block. Braden had begun copying Tiffany on my sensitive client emails just so she could learn from the master, as he put it in the introductory email. 2 days later, the trap sprung. I watched an email chain where Tiffany replied to the chief information officer of a major banking client. She used the wrong 3-letter acronym for their compliance standard, a mistake that could trigger an audit flag. She signed off, "Cheers, Tiff Zoxo." The chief information officer did not reply. I did not correct her. I did not jump in to save the day. I took a screenshot, saved it to the Titanic, and took a slow sip of my coffee. It was getting bitter, but I was starting to enjoy the taste of the inevitable. With the documentation for the Titanic complete, I waited for the inevitable public execution. It arrived in the form of a mandatory company town hall. Braden loved an audience, and he reveled in the performative act of shedding the skin of the past. We shuffled into the main conference room, the air thick with the smell of stale pastries and impending doom. Braden stood at the front, wearing a headset microphone like a motivational speaker, preparing for a talk on the future of synergy. Behind him, a giant screen displayed a word cloud where the single largest word was VIB. He paced the stage. "We are evolving," he announced, his voice dripping with Fox profundity. "We are shedding the skin of the past." And honestly, the past was heavy. It was slow. It was expensive. He paused, looking directly at me. The entire room, full of nervous employees, followed his gaze. I did not flinch. I sat with my spine straight against the ergonomic chair, a notebook open in front of me. I was not writing notes. I was sketching a complex geometric pattern that represented the crumbling of his empire. "We have some legacy methods in this company," Braden continued, his voice shifting to Fox concern. "Methods that served us well in the dinosaur age. But we are mammals now. We are warm-blooded, and we need to phase out the cold-blooded logic that holds us back." The phase out. The phrase hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. He clicked the remote. A new slide appeared, the renewal plan for Project Orion. This was our biggest, most complex client, a defense contractor. These people did not do vibes, they did audits. "I am excited to announce," Braden beamed, "that Tiffany will be leading the Orion pitch this year. Jordan has been mentoring her, but it is time for fresh eyes." The room went dead silent. Everyone knew Project Orion. That client ate junior analysts for breakfast and picked their teeth with the bones. Tiffany stood up, beaming. "I am so excited," she chirped. "I made a mood board for them." A mood board for a defense contractor. I looked at the utter disconnect in the room and knew the end was closer than I thought. The pitch was scheduled for that afternoon via Zoom. I was pointedly not invited. However, I had set up the recurring meeting 5 years ago, and I still had the login codes. I went back to my office, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and lurked. I kept my camera off and my microphone muted, a silent, unseen witness. It was a professional massacre. The client contact, a 60-year-old retired officer named Colonel Sterling, sat stone-faced while Tiffany talked excitedly about brand alignment and holistic software journeys. She kept calling him Mr. Sterling, despite his 2 previous corrections. "It is Colonel." 10 minutes into the disaster, Sterling cut her off. "Young lady, I do not give a damn about the journey. I want to know why the latency on the server clusters increased by 0.4% last month. And where is Jordan? I do not sign contracts with children." Silence. Tiffany froze, looking like a deer caught in headlights, if the deer was wearing excessive lip gloss. Braden, who was also on the call, panicked. My phone started ringing immediately. It was Braden. "Jordan," he hissed, the panic cracking his voice. "Hop on the Zoom. Just smooth it over. Sterling is being difficult." I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. "I am busy, Braden. I am being phased out. Remember, just get on the damn call." I logged in, turning on my camera. Sterling's face visibly relaxed when he saw me. "Connell," I said, my voice dropping an octave into professional command mode. Apologies for the confusion. The latency issue is a cache clearing error on the secondary node. We have a patch ready to deploy tonight at 0200 hours. And regarding the renewal, I have the revised service level agreement prepared with the latency guarantees you asked for. I did not have the service level agreement prepared. I had made up the technical answer and the promise on the spot, but I knew what he needed to hear. Send it over, Jordan, Sterling grunted. And stop wasting my time with the interns. He clicked off, securing a multi-million-dollar contract in 45 seconds flat. I felt a surge of professional validation. My value was tangible, immediate, and required no vibes. I expected a sheepish thank you, or perhaps a temporary reprieve. Instead, Braden came to my office door. He did not step inside. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, the scent of sandalwood now carrying a faint odor of defeat. You know, he said, you really undermined Tiffany's authority there. You made the team look weak. I stared at him, the sheer, unadulterated audacity breathtaking. I saved the contract, Braden. You showed off, he sneered. It is not about being right, Jordan. It is about being a team player. If you cannot support the new direction, maybe you should not be steering the ship. He turned and walked away. The humiliation was complete. It was not just that he tried to replace me. It was that he was too stupid to understand that he could not. My anger was gone, replaced entirely by a final, complete detachment. The stage was set for my exit, with the Orion contract temporarily salvaged and Braden's contempt for my expertise confirmed. I knew my time was measured in days. The next step required an exit strategy and a weapon. My job search was surgical. I went straight to the best and nastiest competitor, Apex Solutions. I contacted Marcus Thorne, Vice President of Strategy at Apex. We had fought over clients for a decade, and he respected me because I was the only person who consistently beat him. I proposed coffee. We met at a discreet, dark, wood-paneled steakhouse 3 towns over. Marcus was already there, swirling a glass of heavy red wine. Jordan, he said, standing up, his grin wide. I heard rumors. Is it true? Is the Prince of Darkness actually as dumb as they say? He is not the Prince of Darkness, Marcus, I said, sliding into the booth. He is the Prince of Pinterest. And yes, it is worse. I did not beg for a job. I simply laid out the facts. I managed $40 million in recurring annual revenue. The clients trusted me, and Braden was actively trying to push me out. Marcus listened, his face impassive. And the non-compete clause. This was the part I had prepared for. I had spent the previous evening reading my old employment contract, a cheap template downloaded from the internet years ago when Old Man Miller was running the firm. It was full of boilerplate language, but then I found it. Clause 14C, I said softly. Marcus paused, the glass halfway to his lips. He frowned, then a low, dry laugh escaped him. Miller's old Rainmaker clause. He never took that out. Nope. Braden does not even know it exists. He thinks a contract is just something you sign so you can get the company iPad. Marcus stopped laughing. His eyes were dead serious. If you come to Apex, we do not just want you. We want the portfolio. Can you deliver? I do not have to deliver them. I countered, cutting into my steak. They're going to come running. I just need a landing pad big enough to catch them. Double your base salary. Marcus offered instantly. Executive Vice President title, full autonomy. And a signing bonus that will pay off your mortgage. I want one more thing, I said, meeting his gaze. Name it. I want to run the acquisition strategy targeting my old firm. I want to be the one who twists the knife. Marcus raised his glass to me. To the knife. The deal was done. My paranoia, my need for armor, had inadvertently provided me with the ultimate weapon. A clause Braden was too ignorant to even know existed. I spent the next 3 days as a ghost in my old office. I was attending meetings and nodding at the right times, but underneath the surface, I was tunneling out of the prison. I was building a bulletproof case. I went through years of emails and forwarded every instance of me landing a deal. Every thanks, Jordan. Every. We are signing because of you. To my personal server, I built a digital dossier that proved I was the sole originator and primary contact for 18 key accounts. I was in the clear. I finalized my resignation letter, slipped it into my leather folio right next to the printout of Clause 14C, and waited. Braden passed me in the hallway that afternoon, singing along to something terrible on his noise-canceling headphones. Hey, Jordan, he shouted. Big budget meeting tomorrow. Bring your A-game, we need to trim some fat. I will be there, I said, smiling, though the smile did not reach my eyes. I am bringing the butcher knife. He gave me a thumbs up, completely oblivious. The stage was set for the final confrontation. The conference room was freezing. Braden kept the air conditioning on blast, believing the cold activated the hustler mindset. We were all shivering, me, the head of human resources, Gary, the chief financial officer, a beaten-down man who knew the numbers and looked like he slept in his car, and Tiffany, her neon pink iPad glowing. I was calm, the kind of calm that precedes a massive storm. Braden stood at the whiteboard, brandishing a red marker like a weapon. He had drawn a pie chart that defied mathematical sense. Okay, team, he said, slapping the board. Here is the reality. Our burn rate is too high. We are spending too much on legacy infrastructure. He looked pointedly at me. Legacy infrastructure was clearly his code for people who actually knew what they were doing. I have been looking at the salary bands, Braden continued, pacing in front of his nonsensical chart. And frankly, they are lopsided. We have some people earning sweet money for doing mid-level execution. I put my pen down slowly. Braden, if you are referring to my compensation, it is directly tied to the revenue I generate. I bring in 10 times what you pay me. Do you, though? He turned, capping the marker with a loud, definitive click. Or does the brand bring it in? See, Jordan, that is your problem. You think you are the star, but the company is the star. Tiffany nodded vigorously. Totally. It is about the ecosystem. Exactly. Tiff, Braden confirmed. And right now, Jordan, your ecosystem is expensive. I could hire 3 Tiffany's for the price of 1 you. The room went dead silent. Gary, the chief financial officer, looked like he wanted to crawl under the mahogany table. He knew that 3 Tiffany's equaled 0 revenue and 3 potential lawsuits. Is that a proposal? I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Braden sighed, a theatrical exhale. Look, Jordan, I am not saying you are fired. I am saying we need to restructure your package. Base salary down 40%, commission capped. If you do not like it, well, maybe you have outgrown us. Maybe you are just too expensive for the modern world. There it was, the trigger, the echo of my deepest, most ancient fear, being told I was disposable, too old and too costly. I looked at him, at his stupid fleece vest, at Tiffany's smug, empty face, and I felt a weight lift off my chest that I had been carrying for 6 months. The fear of being replaced was instantly annihilated by the satisfaction of having outmaneuvered him completely. I stood up slowly. You think I am expensive? I asked. I think you are overvalued. Braden smirked. And honestly, you should be grateful we are keeping you around. I reached into my leather folio. I pulled out the single sheet of paper I had printed the day before and slid it across the table. It stopped perfectly in front of him. What is this? He asked, not looking at it. My resignation, effective immediately. Braden laughed, a short, sharp sound. Wow, drama queen much. You cannot just walk out. Jordan, you have a notice period. You have a non-compete. Read the contract, Braden, I said, picking up my bag. The one your father wrote. I do not need to read it. I own it. Then you are about to learn a very expensive lesson in literacy. I took my key badge off my lanyard and placed it on the table. It made a solid clack sound that echoed in the silence. Where are you going? Tiffany asked, her voice squeaky with confusion. I am going to find a buyer who can afford me, I said. Good luck with the vibes, Braden. You are going to need them. I turned and walked to the door. If you walk out that door, Braden yelled, his voice rising in panic and fury. Do not think you can come crawling back when you realize nobody hires 40-year-old relics. I stopped. I did not turn around. I just smiled. Goodbye, Braden. I walked out past the bewildered employees. As I stepped through the glass front doors and into the crisp air, I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus. He answered on the first ring. I did not say a word to him. I put him on speaker and walked a few steps away from the building. I could hear Braden's escalating shouts from inside the conference room. Suddenly, Marcus's voice boomed from the speaker, cutting through Braden's fading tirade. You are too expensive, leave! The founder's son shouted. My phone rang instantly. I put it on speaker. This is your biggest competitor. We heard you are available. We will double your salary. The son went pale. Then the voice added, and we are taking your clients too. I turned the speaker volume down. I am out, Marcus. I said calmly. Initiate the offer. It is already in your inbox. Marcus replied. Welcome to the winning team, Jordan. The cathartic release was explosive. The professional war had officially begun. The next morning, I did not wake up with the familiar knot of dread in my stomach. I woke up with a mission. I put on my best charcoal gray suit, the Armani armor plating of actual success, and drove to Apex Solutions. Their headquarters stood literally across the street from my old office. I could see Braden's floor from the conference room window. Marcus met me in the lobby. No vibes, no hollow motivational talk, just a firm handshake and a key card. Your office is ready, Jordan, he said. And the legal team has already reviewed your non-compete. You were right. The Rainmaker clause is ironclad. You are free to hunt. Let us not call it hunting, I replied, walking into a corner office that smelled of new leather and actual, earned revenue. Let us call it a rescue mission. My plan was simple and relied entirely on Braden's inability to tell the truth. I was going to call my clients, tell them I had left, tell them where I was, and let Braden do the rest of the work for me. I checked my watch. Right about 9 a.m. sharp, the calls would start. My phone rang shortly after. It was Colonel Sterling. I put him on speaker for Marcus. Jordan, the Colonel barked. Good morning. How are the servers? To hell with the servers. Where are you? The Colonel cut in. That idiot son of a gun just told me you were fired for being slow. What the hell is going on? I resigned, Colonel, I said clearly. I am now the Executive Vice President of Strategy at Apex Solutions. Apex, he paused. They are expensive. We are, I agreed. But we do not hire people based on their TikTok following, and we do not have latency issues. She told me you were taking a sabbatical. The Colonel growled, referring to Tiffany. Said you needed some time. Mental health is so important, right? Put the Chief Executive Officer on. I heard the Colonel confront Braden, and I heard Braden's flustered lie. Jordan was struggling with the workload. We decided to let him go for the good of the project. He was not agile enough for your needs. He was not agile. The Colonel's voice was dangerously low. He was the only person in your clown car of a company who knew how our server architecture worked. Can you take the account, Jordan? I can, I confirmed, but you have a contract with Braden until December. I have a breach of contract clause. The Colonel snapped. Failure to provide adequate support. If you are not there, there is no support. Send me the paperwork. Jordan, I am moving the fleet. I looked at Marcus, who was grinning like a Cheshire cat. That was one. $5 million gone in 15 minutes. I spent the rest of the day on the phone. It was surgical. I did not badmouth Braden. I did not have to. I simply stated, I am no longer there. Tiffany is handling your account now. The panic on the other end of the line was palpable. By 5 o'clock that afternoon, I had 7 verbal commitments. That was roughly $12 million in revenue migrating across the street in real time. The only call I dreaded came late in the day. Jordan, it was Old Man Miller, the founder. His voice sounded old and tired. Hello, Mr. Miller. What are you doing, Jordan? He asked, pained. Braden tells me you are stealing the company. He says you are sabotaging him. I am not stealing anything. I am competing, I said firmly. Braden fired me, Mr. Miller. Or he tried to. He told me I was too expensive. He replaced me with a 24-year-old who thinks return on investment is a type of yoga. The clients are not leaving because I am stealing them. They are leaving because they are terrified. There was a long silence. He told me you quit. He said you had a breakdown. I lied, like he lies about the metrics. I tried to warn you, Mr. Miller. I told you he was not ready. He is destroying it. I am just salvaging the parts that work. If you take the Apex accounts, the company collapses. We are leveraged on those contracts. Maybe Braden should have thought about that before he tried to lowball the person who holds the relationships. I countered, feeling a cold vindication. It is too late, Miller. The trust is gone. The clients know I am here and they know I am valued here. You cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. He sighed, the sound of a legacy dissolving. I see. Well, you always were a killer, Jordan. I just forgot you were my killer. An hour later, Braden called. He was screaming, "You witch! You traitor! I am suing you! I am suing Apex! I am going to bury you in litigation so deep you will need a submarine to get out." Hello, Braden, I said, putting him on speaker. My new legal counsel, a woman named Sarah. who made great white sharks look like goldfish, sat across from me. "You are in violation of your non-compete, Clause 14b, he shrieked. "Read Clause 14c, Braden," I said calmly. "Page 8, paragraph 3. The Rainmaker exception. Your father wrote it. I qualified for it on 18 accounts. And guess which 18 accounts just left you?" Silence, frantic rustling of paper. Then a gasp. You planted this?" "I did not plant it. I read it, something you should try doing instead of meditating." "I will tell everyone you are a thief." "Go ahead," I said, "but be careful. Defamation suits are very expensive, and unlike you, I can afford it." I hung up. Sarah smiled. "Dead in the water. He has no case." I nodded, looking across the street at my old building. The bloodbath was beautiful, bureaucratic, and entirely justified. The 2 weeks following my resignation were a beautiful, bureaucratic bloodbath. It was not just the clients leaving, it was the talent. The engineers, seeing the cash drying up and sensing the inevitable, started applying to Apex. I hired the best ones, leaving Braden with only those who had sided with him. In a last desperate move, Braden sent an email blast to the few remaining small clients, claiming Apex was under federal investigation for corporate espionage. It was a stupid, transparent lie. One of those clients forwarded the email to me. I walked it down the hall to Marcus. "Is this actionable?" I asked, placing the printout on his desk. Marcus read it, his eyes widening. "This is beautiful. This is libel per se. We can send a cease and desist that will make his head spin." "Do it," I said. The cease and desist letter demanding a public retraction and apology hit Braden's desk the next morning. He folded instantly, his last shred of professional credibility dissolving with the forced retraction. Then came the news about Tiffany. I was getting coffee when one of my new hires, a bright young man named Josh, walked in. "Hey Jordan, guess who just applied for the junior Discord moderator position?" "Discord moderator?" "Yeah, Tiffany from across the street. Apparently Braden fired her yesterday. Blamed her for the Orion loss. Said her vibes were off. Rats always eat each other when the ship goes down." "Of course he did," I said. "Tell her we are reviewing her application. Let her sweat for a week. Then send her a rejection letter in Comic Sans." "Petty, yes, satisfying. God, yes." The board of directors, Miller's old cronies, finally woke up. An emergency vote of no confidence was scheduled for Friday afternoon. I sat in my new office, reviewing Apex's quarterly projections. My portfolio was up 200%. My bonus was going to be obscene. My phone buzzed. A text from Gary, the old chief financial officer. "Jordan, they just voted he's out. Miller is coming back as interim, but it's over. We have no cash flow. Filing for Chapter 11 next week, bankruptcy." I felt a quick, sharp twinge of sadness, not for Braden or the shell of the company, but for the memory of what it used to be, the good work we once did. Then I remembered being called too expensive. I typed back instantly, "Gary, I am sorry. Send me your resume. I need a controller." He replied, "Sending now." I had saved the people who mattered. The rest was just ash. Friday evening. The sun was setting over the Rockies. I stood in the Apex boardroom, a glass of champagne in my hand. My team was behind me, celebrating the record-breaking quarter. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I looked across the street. Braden's floor was dark, except for the one-corner office. I saw a figure moving around inside. It was Braden, packing a box. I watched him throw his ridiculous fleece vest over his shoulder. He stopped and looked out the window right at our building. I did not know if he could see me through the tinted glass, but I stepped forward anyway. I raised my glass. "Cheers, you absolute failure," I thought, and then I turned my light off. The floor went dark. The company I had built for 17 years was gone, a cautionary tale about confusing confidence with competence. Marcus walked up beside me. "You okay?" "I am better than okay," I said. "I am profitable." "We just got the final numbers, Jordan," Marcus added. "With the acquisition of the final account, you have officially surpassed the total revenue of your old firm's peak year." "Good. You know," Marcus mused, looking across at the dark building. "He was right about one thing." "What is that?" "You are expensive." I turned to him, the smile sharp and cold. "Quality is always expensive, Marcus. It is the cheap knockoffs that cost you everything." I took out my phone. I opened the digital dossier folder I had named the Titanic. I selected all files, delete, empty trash. We are all healed, I thought, and then I went to join my team. "You are too expensive, leave." The founder's son shouted. My phone rang instantly. I put it on speaker. This is your biggest competitor. We heard you are available. We will double your salary. The son went pale. Then the voice added, and we are taking your clients too.